Shalom and welcome to Wisdom and Torah Ministries. My name is Rico Cortez. It's an honor to have you with me today, and we're going to be sharing about a very interesting topic. The question is that we're going to talk about today is, what is the new covenant, or what is the renewed covenant? One of the things that provoked me to do a teaching on this was the fact that the church does not believe themselves to be keeping Torah. In other words, they don't think that they need to follow the commandments of Yahweh. They feel that just because they're under grace, that they don't have to follow the commandments of God anymore. That is done away with. That is the law. But yet, we know that Yeshua says the opposite, and the disciples say the opposite. So the church, they teach that the word of Yahweh is the same yesterday, today, and forever. But yet, for one side of the lips they say that, and the other side of the lips they're saying that we're no longer going to keep the commandments. That's under the law. They say with one side of their mouth that the Yahweh doesn't change, but yet we don't have to keep the Sabbath day because that's for the Jews. So there's a controversy, and we see how the church is basically contradicting themselves. And we know how a lot of Messianics are trying to find the transition from the church way of life into a Hebraic observance lifestyle. But this is a stumbling block, because they don't understand what was changed. If the Torah was changed, then Yahweh changes, and He is not Yahweh. If the Torah changes, and He came to do away with the law, that makes no sense, because one of the reasons He came to do, He fulfilled a lot of levels. But one of the reasons why He came to the earth was to restore the 10 tribes of Israel. The lost sheep of the house of Israel. Which, by the way, they were all idolaters. They worship other gods. So Yeshua restores that covenant. So now He restores the Torah back to them because they broke that covenant. And then after He risen from the dead, every Christian now says we don't have to keep the covenant that He came to restore. It just makes no sense. So He comes to restore the covenant that given on Mount Sinai to the children of Israel. And once He gives it and He restores it, now everybody in the world is breaking the same covenant that He came to restore, by which Israel went to the dispersion and got kicked out of the land because they broke that covenant. Yeshua restores it, and every Christian brother is breaking the same covenant that He came to restore again back to us. So we need to explain this. Will you agree? You follow? Okay? And we need to explain this, what was changed. But we're going to do it in a very systematic way. So what is the renewed covenant? Some of you might be listening right now all over the world, and you might say, wait a minute, he's not using the word new. He's using the word renew. I'm going to explain that in a minute. We're going to cover certain areas. We're going to go to Jeremiah 31. We're also going to go to Exodus. We're going to go to the book of Hebrews. And the whole foundation of this teaching is found in Hebrews chapter 7 and chapter 8. But we're going to read it verse by verse by verse by verse and explaining it to see what was done away with. Was it the Torah? And by the way, if the Torah of Yahweh, if Yeshua, let me rephrase that. If Yeshua came to do away the Torah of Yahweh, then He is a false Messiah and we're wasting our time. So surely I choose to misunderstand the scriptures, and I choose to understand then that I'm not understanding it correctly. That is my fault. So I want to go back and re-verify this, because if I'm saying that the law is done away with, then you're showing me that Yeshua is not the Messiah. Because the Jews don't believe in Yeshua or Jesus because of that. When I was in Jerusalem, in the yeshiva, I would see how the Jews, the rabbis, would look at the Christians coming up in Christmas, and they would look at them, they say, see, they're not serving the Jewish Messiah. And they will quote you Deuteronomy 13, verses 1 through 3. If there's a dreamer, a prophet or a dreamer of dream, and he does signs and wonders, and those things come to pass, but then he tells you to go worship other gods, he says, do not go after them. Because that's Yahweh testing you to see if you love Yahweh with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength. And I was paraphrasing, so you can go verify yourself. So the Jews, when they see the Christians go to Jerusalem, they laugh at them. Because we're doing a good job not showing them the true evidence and the testimony of a Jewish Messiah and the way of life that they can see, that Judah can see us live, and then we can provoke them to jealousy. So that's the problem. We'll catch ourselves in basically, how do you call it? Hypocritical attitudes and actions. So the Jews see it and they say, why should I follow the Jesus you're following? He doesn't have evidence. He doesn't follow lifestyle of the Jewish people or the Torah for that matter. So it's a restoration of all things. So what is the renewed covenant? Let's see what Yeshua said first. Matthew 5:17. And this should be the foundation for us. Not only that the Torah, but what Yeshua said. He is the Messiah, right? And according to what I understand, he's the lawgiver. He is the one who gave the commandments on Mount Sinai. So he says, think not that I've come to destroy the law or the prophets. I am not come to destroy, but to fulfill. Verily, verily, I said unto you, till heaven and earth pass away, one jot or one tittle shall in no wise pass from this Torah till it be all fulfilled. We still have the same heavens. We still have the same earth. It has not passed away. Whosoever therefore shall break one of these least commandments and shall teach men so, he shall be called the least in the kingdom of heaven. But whosoever shall do and teach them, the same shall be called great in the kingdom of heaven. So we need to teach them. It didn't say that they're not going to be saved. It says that they're going to be called least in the kingdom of heaven. Anyway, 5:17 says, think not that I come to destroy the Torah and the prophets. I'm not come to destroy, but to fulfill. The word fulfilled in that verse in Greek is plero, which means bring it full of meaning, full of understanding. He did say, I did not come to destroy. Twice. Even in grammatical Hebrew, you know that he's saying, I didn't come to destroy. So I don't know where my Christian brothers get that you do away with the law because it's fulfilled. In grammatical English, doesn't make any sense. In the literal sense, it doesn't make any sense. You know? In the Pesha. So also, the thing now that I come to destroy the Torah, I saw it in the yeshiva. When I was studying in Jerusalem at a yeshiva, Eish HaTorah, for about 12 days, not too long, I was sitting in some of the midrash or the rabbis, and I would hear them, hey, you're destroying the Torah. In other words, you bring in a bad interpretation. But then when they were doing a good one, say, oh, you're fulfilling the Torah. This is a rabbinical understanding, a Hebraic way of understanding. Context is the key here. If we don't understand context, then we're never going to understand what Yeshua was trying to say and what the scriptures really say. In Romans 7, verse 12 says, wherefore, this is what Paul says, Rav Shaul, wherefore the law is holy and the commandments holy and just and good. So wait a minute. Is Paul schizophrenic? He's saying that the Torah is holy, commandment holy, just and good, and then he says that we don't have to follow that. So if Paul is contradicting himself, he's a false apostle, and we're not going to read any of his letters. So are we understanding him the right way? Do we know who he was? So are we understanding who he was without really understanding the Hebrew culture, the Hebrew language, the idiomatic expressions? And we are taking and we're doing exactly what 2 Peter says about Paul. 2 Peter 3:15. Check this out. It says, on account of that the long suffering of our Lord is salvation, and also our beloved brother Paul, according to the wisdom given to him, has written to you, as also in all his epistles, speaking them of these things, in which some things are hard to understand, which those who are untaught and unstable twist to their own destruction, so they do also the rest of the scriptures. In other words, if you don't know who Paul was, the methods of study that he learned from Shammai and Hillel, from Gamaliel, which was the grandson of Hillel, okay, you're never going to understand who Paul was. If you don't understand what was his upbringing, that he knew the Torah verbatim by the time he was 20 years old, that according to the traditions of the rabbis or the Pharisees or the elders, he was an expert. Then if you don't understand the methods of study that he utilized. By the way, when I was in Jerusalem, I opened some of the Midrash and some of the Talmud, some of the writings to just seek some references, right?